So we'll get going. Joe, would you like to introduce yourself? You can share your screen if you've got some slides.
I will do what I can. Here comes the tech part.
It's all very exciting.
Honestly, it's game-changing.
Computers.
He says not being able to see the slideshow button. Oh, way!
Yay!
Sweet. Hello. Thank you everyone for coming. Honestly, I had absolutely no idea how many people we'd have, what the situation would be, and this is more than I could ever have expected. So really, really excited, and hopefully we can have a brilliant chat through. I've managed to change the slide already, so excellent. Well done, Joe. So yeah, my name's Joe. I'm the Joe Ross Nelson. I'm the Campus Engagement Manager for Greenwich Students' Union, and this will be my session on building better communities and talking all about how we build engagement and improve student experience on our satellite campuses. So as Rosie's given this amazing intro already, it's going to be a talk through, as we said, about 40-50 minute talk through, time for questions, and then I will head to the coffee shop afterwards as well. It says not recorded there. We now know recorded, so I'm glad I put a bit of effort into my hair and beard today because, you know, it's important to capture it for future occasions.
You look very smart.
Thank you, I tried. I've already been mocked by my manager on WhatsApp for wearing stash on camera, but what else am I going to do? You know, it's about repping, isn't it? And also
wearing stash.
Yeah. And shout out to Rachel Lynch, who's already dropped my name in the comments, who I was a Sav with back at Loughborough. So that's quite a nice little treat. Thanks for coming along. Okay, so in the spirit of transparency, it's been a big week for me. I've not had the opportunity to see many of the sessions so far otherwise, which is a shame. So I'm not entirely sure what to expect, but I'm quite excited. And the spirit of transparency, as we always talk about, my hopes for the session that this is going to be an accurate and interesting insight into GSU's Building Better Communities project, the project I've been managing for the last year. Hopefully all the tech holds up. Hopefully my voice and my brain holds up, but do let me know in the chat section or the Q&A or something if it goes wrong. I really hope that everyone who's attending has one of those amazing brain click moments where they think of something that could help their student communities. And if you do, write it down. If you need to leave to get a piece of paper and stop listening to me for a few minutes, do whatever you need to do to make sure that moment is captured somewhere. Hopefully you're all feeling as comfortable as possible. Obviously the cameras are off, but sit where you like, eat what you want, share any questions that come to you, get comfortable. And hopefully I'm going to have a great time doing this. And if I have a great time, you will all as well. So what's the session going to look like? Essentially, this is all going to be a lowdown of our Building Better Communities project at Greenwich Students' Union and the impacts that it's had on our student communities. A lot of it is going to be quite anecdotal, but I'm hoping that everyone's going to have some thoughts, some ideas, some questions to take away, and we can either discuss them here, discuss them in the coffee shop afterwards, or if for some reason I don't meet any of these hopes or objections or plans or whatever, hunt me down afterwards by email, by the coffee shop, by social media, tell me I've not met your expectations, and we will happily spend time talking through any questions you might have. Hopefully that all sounds good. Can I see the chat function? Not very easily. Yes, I can. Awesome. Just to give me a bit of insight into who's looking, I was going to do a thumbs up, thumbs down, but obviously that doesn't work. So we're going to do a bit of a 1-2 and asking you just either put a 1 into a chat or a 2 into the chat, depending on your answer. And I'd just like to know, number 1, if you're a student at a university at the moment, or number 2, if you're a staff member. All the staff members, amazing. And Megan is a Sab can count as both, right? I always thought Sab was a staff member. Other people say they're sort of student-y, but I like it. So we've got some Sabs, mostly staff, but some students in here as well. Similar question, but I'm presuming most of you are here because you have a satellite campus at your university. Otherwise, you might just be here to see me and my lovely face. So could you chuck a 1 if you've got a 1 primary satellite campus? Maybe there's just 2 satellite campuses in your university, or a 2 if you've got multiple sites. Boom, all the 2s straight in. The system's working, I like this. Interesting from Emma, we've got lots of campuses, but also some partnership institutions as well. Really cool. And then lastly, just again, to make sure I know who we've got listening, and you might be able to see some people you want to ask questions to as well later on. Chuck me a 1 if you would describe your satellite campus as fluid. So maybe an easy commute away and staff and students are expected to switch between campuses quite easily. Or drop me a number 2 if you'd say it's a distanced campus and the two all sort of work autonomously and the only link is really university governance perhaps. Dan, you've got both, love it. Some others have got both, amazing. This is brilliant. Thank you so much for engaging with this early on. And nice to know we've got a good mix. So as far as satellite campuses go, I would define it, and lots of research defines it, as a site or a community that wouldn't be considered to be the mothership of the university. It's not necessarily where the senior leadership team and the core activity and learnings take place. And satellite campuses, or branch campuses as they're sometimes spoken about, are so increasingly common in the HE landscape. It's a bit crazy actually. Back in 2015, the Times Higher Education identified 13 new London-based satellite campuses alone. And I imagine that's what a lot of you have, where you're from another university outside of London and they've set up a campus in the city. And actually that's what this picture is here. This picture is the beautiful Loughborough in London. Of course I've dropped Loughborough in, campus that they opened up back in 2015, I believe. And actually the number of single site universities, those which just have one single campus, is decreasing every single year. And I did a very informal count up, and I reckon there's only maybe about 15 or 20 around at the moment, which is so few when you think about the comparison to even just 5 to 10 years ago. Now the thing with satellite campuses is they're brilliant for the university. They offer extra space and resource. They offer amazing, Dudley College has 9 campuses. That's a lot of campuses. Impressive. I don't even know where Dudley is. Let me know in the chat. Typically, they'll often also allow people to specialise in particular academic subjects or build partnerships with people or recruit a particular type of student. And they also do offer a lot of benefits to our student community, of course. West Midlands, excellent. Not quite East Midlands, where Loughborough is, but that's fine. And for students, they offer loads of great things, the satellite campuses. They can be a really tailored academic experience for those students. It might be easier to bond and have a sense of belonging if you're a part of a smaller campus. They could be more affordable for university, particularly if there's accommodation on site and it's sort of out of city potentially. And for some students, it's easier to commute to these places and they've got that local higher education opportunity as well. But sadly, there's also a lot of negative experiences that we see, and these are the ones that get written and spoken about a lot more in research. I'm going to pick out 2 key examples here that actually lots of you will probably be familiar with. I think One Key's Only the Lonely is research that lots of us will have come across in the last 18 months or so, based around students from 2017 to 2019, I believe, talking about their experience of isolation. And this is really, really pressing when you consider London-based satellites in particular. It highlights that 16.6% of students consider themselves to have no friends at university, which in itself is a scary figure, rising to 19% in London and 20% in international students. So if you are a student who is coming to particularly maybe a London satellite campus, and you're either commuting from home or from a various parts of the city, of the surrounding area, or you're coming here because you're an international student who wants that London experience, finding friends can be quite hard, and isolation really is a prevalent issue on our satellite campuses. And Student Minds add a whole new layer to that when they talk about growth and development in people. And they highlight that actually for halls of residence and micro communities, students are undergoing these often quite drastic or amazing or life-changing transformations all at the same time and in the same places. And when you combine that with a culture of comparison, this idea of lots of confessions pages that I always see popping up, it's sort of a student fad at the moment about how to gain rep and share stories and those Instagrammable moments as well. It can be really detrimental to the well-being of these young people to be undergoing these transformations at a time where they might feel under pressure or constantly comparing themselves to others. So we're in a very specific place here that students need a lot of support. So let me talk a little bit about Avery Hill campus. This is my campus, my baby. This is the University of Greenwich's satellite campus. It's found in Greater Southwest London. I would describe it as one of these fluid satellite campuses. So it's only 30 minutes bus journey away from our main campus, and people, students, staff stakeholders are expected to migrate between the two throughout the week. But because of its close capacity and close location to this main campus, it's losing its identity, and lots of the values and resources are being stripped away because of how straightforward it should be to go to the main Greenwich campus. As a picture, there's about 3,500 to 4,000 students on this site, so it is still a big, chunky satellite campus, to use that word. 1,000 of those live in residence, and about 2,500 of those study in our education and healthcare courses. So are often really dedicated placement students who are coming back and having to spend a lot of time outside of campus. So I keep trying to keep up with the chat at the same time. It's also the home to most of the university's Team Greenwich sports facilities, great facilities, and it used to be the home of I use nightclub in brackets because it was more of a dirty bar that students somehow still loved. But that's left in the last 2-3 years. So there really is, again, a change in dynamic of what students expect on this campus. Now, the picture I've used here is the one that the university used for most of their comms about Avery Hill campus. And I've picked it because it makes me a little bit sad that this is the photo they use. It's very non-identifiable. It's not exciting or positive or active. And it doesn't, for me, give a very good representation of the space. And this is an activity I encourage anyone to do. When I was first looking at this role, I Googled what the campus looks like when you first look for images of it. I don't know about you guys, but if I'm ever trying to go somewhere new, I Google it, I want to know what it's going to look like. And when I looked at all of these pictures on display here, there's no life or activity or joy really in any of these pictures. Yes, there's sunshine and there's greenery, but I don't see anything that makes me want to get a sense of community and come form a part of this community as well. And this might work for the university's Greenwich campus, which has these beautiful maritime buildings on the River Thames and looks in its own right empowering and passionate and positive, but it's not working here. And this was one of my main drivers for making sure that we improve the experience at this campus. And it's something I really do recommend you having a think about and trying to see what your student perspective might be of this campus that you're here to talk about and learn about. When we look at the demographics, this might be similar to others. I've got the breakdown of demographics here for Avery Hill, and in brackets is the corresponding demographic for the Greenwich campus itself. And on the surface, it looks to have an older white female undergraduate community. And within our FEHHS students, these are our health and human science students and healthcare students, that is very prevalent, but it's heavily skewed towards these students. And just looking at this demographic, we're losing out that story of the multicultural student body who live in our halls and are often living in London for the first time. And so we've really got two huge scale, different groups of people who take up this campus. And it's already highlighted to me that what we were missing before was we were trying to do a one-size-fits-all approach. And ultimately that isn't working for our campus. And I've got no doubt that it won't work for yours. We have a bit of a sense of loyalty. We get a very few handful of students who will stay and have their whole university experience on this campus. But typically it's students who use it as a stopgap, short-term, cheap accommodation, or for placement students, they're only spending 30% of their academic studies on this site. And we're seeing this lack of relationship with the campus reflected in our engagement levels before this academic year, where only 2% of our activity members, so sports clubs, societies, volunteering, lived in halls of residence, and only 11% studied at this campus. So despite this campus having, about 20 to 30% of the student population, unfortunately, only 11% are getting involved, and voter turnout has been dropping as well. So there really is that need for us to stamp out this apathy and to get a project going. And that's where the Building Better Communities project has come in play. They often say don't make assumptions, but we all do. And these were the assumptions that the university and the Students' Union held for a long time about our campus. We saw that the students and felt that the students were isolated. They didn't feel cared for, and particularly they felt of less significance than their peers at other campuses. And it's this lack of parity of offer that you see in the third bullet point. And that's our real buzz phrase going forward, It's something that we use in all of our communications with the university and stakeholders, because it's something that just screams lack of fairness, and that's not right. Students would also say that there weren't investments in the spaces and they didn't have a perception of value for money. These are the things that we kept thinking we knew. These were the impressions we had, assumptions we had, and it's what helped us get the founding for this project going forward. Apologies, I'm losing my voice already. Not a good start. So anyway, the project beginning. The project, the Building Better Communities project, had two principal goals behind it. And these were taken straight from our big plan that we use to guide everything at Greenwich Students' Union. And they are to empower our members to change the world and to help our members have a great time at the University of Greenwich. And in this case, we needed to make sure that our members felt empowered to change their community that they were living in and to help them have a great time here on this Avery Hill campus. It took a long time to get this project going. I'm not going to hesitate to tell you that. Our officer team, and you can actually see one of them, the tallest rugby player in this lovely picture of rugby players, it took them a bid from 2016 that they first put in place when they identified Avery Hill as their top priority. And it took 3 more academic years, despite the submission of papers, of reports, of surveys, for something to get changed about it. And it took one final formal report, the Building Better Communities at Avery Hill report in June 2019, for the university to agree to give us some funding to deliver this project. And this £50,000 funding that we've got as our main resource sits alongside lots of ongoing physical and academic reforms on the campus too. We were able to appoint a campus engagement manager, that was me, back in September 2019, internally appointed, and I transitioned full-time into the role in November 2019. And I'll come on to this later, but what is really, really key about this timescale isn't just the 3 years that it took to make this happen. There's also that we missed out on a lot of bulk opportunities to ingrain ourselves into the student community. And by missing that key September and October time at the start of this academic year, we didn't have a chance to establish ourselves in the priorities, expectations and routines of the student body. So if you are ever going to be asking for something, I think the timelines that you ask for are so key to make sure that you are ready to make a difference right when it's going to impact the students the most. And I would say you're looking at a September, October start or a January start when you've got this slightly new year, new me approach as well. So just again, a bit more background. These were the objectives that we laid out following early consultation with our officers, student leaders and senior SU staff and university staff. The main one is the top one, and it's the idea that we wanted to develop the quality and quantity of on-campus community interactions. We wanted students to be passing by each other more often, to be saying hello, to becoming familiar with each other, and then also engaging with each other in activities and interventions and feedback opportunities. We wanted to make sure that students felt a part of a bigger community, not just their campus, but the local community around it as well. In our case, we have Eltham, almost got the town vibe on the suburbs of London, where we want students to feel at home and feel welcome and feel like they're invited to engage with it. And that wasn't the case beforehand. We wanted students to feel like they had access to every level that they needed of wellbeing support, and that you didn't have to go to one of our other campuses to get something that should rightfully be on the Avery Hill campus as well. And we wanted our students to have multiple pathways to engage with us. Now, the aims we set out were obviously measured by particular metrics that we established. We wanted students to have a great time. We wanted them to build and respect the communities around them. And when we looked at the metrics, it was so easy to fall into that trap early on of looking for, okay, how many students are turning up to our sessions? How many students are getting involved in X, Y, and Z? And when we dug further into our objectives, that didn't feel right. And that's something that I really encourage people to take away. It's not about, the success isn't measured by the number of people engaged. It was about, for us, the amount of data and opportunities we captured and the amount of activity that we were able to deliver in collaboration with someone. So it was about being meaningful in our activities and being purposeful in how we captured that data and not just looking at the sheer numbers themselves. We also wanted to see the satisfaction amongst our campus residents, and we partnered with the university on this. We looked at what opportunities the university already have for feedback and made sure we integrated themselves into that. So we got a widespread number of students giving us information. And we wanted to trial again this idea of getting a bar back on campus so that our students had a social space ready for them that we could prove was a necessary need, essentially, for the students on this site. So looking straight into, actually, I'm going to get the Q&A up just in case I've missed anything. No, I'm not. I'm going to click on something accidentally.
You've had one question so far that's about COVID and changing the way you engage in satellite campuses. So you can answer that now if you want, or you can save it to the end.
I will address that partway through the presentation.
Oh,
why not? I know, how exciting.
If anyone else has any questions, do send them through.
Please, but thank you, Rachel, for dropping that question in. I really appreciate it. And do use the chat function too if people need to. So anyway, let's look at actually what we did, the more juicy stuff. So we focused primarily on feedback opportunities. Really, this was the 1 year of this project that we knew we could prioritize this, because we had assumptions, but we had to show to the university, to our stakeholders and to our students that we had evidence for these assumptions and that we knew exactly what we were talking about and they were representative of our current student body. So we ran quite a vast combination of feedback opportunities. We did focus groups that we paid students for their time, and this definitely saw us get more engagement than unpaid focus groups, unsurprisingly. We had one-on-one conversations and consultations with our student leaders and our staff on site. We made sure that we had project-specific surveys set up and feedback forms for the events and activities we trialled. We set up a staff campus group so that every member of staff on the campus was represented and could give their feedback as well. We feel like they could champion and empower the cause. And importantly, we played a crucial part in the organisation's annual student priorities research. And this is something that I'm really proud of at Greenwich Students' Union. It's an initiative, that's the word, an initiative that started up 18 months ago to 2 years ago now. And it's about us getting the priorities of our students and using that to set our objectives for the annual year and make sure that our incoming officers and officer teams have something solid to base their work off of. And we were sure to embed this project into that priorities research and get as much feedback from students as possible. So in total, big success. We got 274 formal instances of feedback across 228 individual students. And that's roughly 6% of the campus population. And I'm going to be completely honest. I was disheartened at first when I looked at that number and thought it was only 6%. But then I took the context of what we were doing and realized that, okay, yes, we have 1,000 students who live on site, but those students typically migrate to the Greenwich campus 9 till 5, actually 8 till 8. That's where they want to be. That's where they spend their time. And our students who do study on site either are on placement for 60% of the time, or when they do visit the campus, are so intensely in lectures that giving feedback is not their #1 priority when they just want a coffee and lunch. So actually 6% of the campus population, and it was a well-spread demographic of students, in turn I've taken as a success instead. The main thing that we wanted for term 1's feedback opportunities was to prioritize getting feedback that we could instantly use to make an impact on the project and on the community itself. We were asking questions that were about the timescales that students wanted things to take place in, the types of activities they were interested in, what activities they wanted to facilitate themselves or would want support in doing. And we used all this information to try and tailor and make quick improvements. We were instantly able to use this to make sure we had 2 tailored activity programs, one for residents and one for those who study on campus, because the crossover is surprisingly rare there for us. We were able to make some investment into our social spaces quickly and to try and turn what was a non-studenty space into something that the students were proud of and felt they could go into and interact with straight away. We got the officers to use this feedback to change the inter-campus bus timetables and to make some campus security practices and improve those as well. And instantly this meant that students saw not just that their feedback was used, not just that staff delivered it, but actually that student leaders and sabbatical officers were also able to use this information to impact the university and make change. And it was something that we were really keen to make sure was a part of this project, was that driver of peer leadership and peer responsibility going forward. It also saw us make some brilliant comms plans with academics, where we found that academics are the most trusted source for basically everything in a student's life here at the University of Greenwich. And so if an academic says that this is a good idea, or even just promotes this activity, it instantly gives that idea to the student that, okay, cool, this is something I'm allowed to do, I'm encouraged to do, and there's going to be no risk of detrimenting my academic studies. And we found that to be a pinnacle of what we needed to do to promote our activities. And it also meant, not necessarily so short term, but it meant we had brilliant plans to help guide our welcome induction plans for September 2020 and make early statements into the planning process for the new academic year to the university about what it is that students wanted and needed. So obviously the feedback itself is the big impact, really. It helped us make concrete recommendations to the university and the SU's strategic groups, and it helped us show and shape the future of the project. I'm going to say that sentence made sense. But also what it allowed us to do, and we found from talking to students afterwards, is that it made them be aware of the project. It helped them gain support for the project and the role itself, and it helped put my face as part of the project, which was a big win. It gave us a lot of evidence and storytelling ideas and feedback to use for future iterations of the project, any campaigns we wanted to use. And crucially, it validated the experiences of our students, and they saw that when they gave feedback, such as about the bus timetable, it was taken seriously. And this meant that any feedback we asked for in future, they instantly saw that it was there because we valued them, not because we were using them as a tick box activity. I'm going to have some more water again. And while I do, I just thought it might be a good place for everyone to shut their eyes, go to the loo, get a glass of water, whatever it is, have a 2-minute break, because I think everyone needs that on a Thursday midweek. And when we come back, I'll talk a little bit about the activities that I've put in place as well. So just use this to take a break, go to the chat, go to the Q&A, whatever works for you.
Good moment for a break. We haven't scheduled enough of these into the session. So I think everybody who's been at a few of these sessions over the week will be like, oh, lovely.
I mean, it's for my gain more than anyone else's, but you know, that's fine.
Good opportunity for questions, everybody.
Yeah, true.
I've got a few, but I'm going to save mine because I want to hear from everybody else first.
Rosie, how's your day been going? Just as a nice little conversation to have in the meantime.
Good, thank you. Yeah.
Early session went really well?
Yeah, luckily we started at 12, so nothing's been too early in the morning. I'm not a good morning person, I'm more of a night owl. So yeah, this is session 2 of the day for me, which is cool. One of the best things about being on tech support duty is that I get to watch everything. Well, half of everything. The other person who I work with is watching the other half. So yeah, we get to meet in the kitchen for a coffee and be like, oh yeah, I've just learnt this.
Nice. It's
good.
And they're currently enjoying Shan. I don't know what is it? I don't know RuPaul well enough to get this phrase correctly, but is it something like Shantae, you slay and you go away, something like that, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
COVID-19 sashay away, I think she was referring to. Yeah, Carly runs is a manager for Pride, London Pride, so and obviously that hasn't happened, so she's talking about running virtual Pride. Amazing. Which is interesting, but that's being recorded too, so anybody in this session can watch back on that. We're going to be sharing the recordings next week of all of the sessions that we've been able to record, which is 90% of them, so fantastic. Lots of juicy content for people to go back to, and for Sabs who are doing their first week this week and can't attend everything, they'll be able to get back. Oh, someone's put a question in. Lovely, thanks Owain.
Brilliant question. I will address that now, actually. So we were very fortunate to have one existing project that supported us with this beforehand, and that was our academic communities project, which we set up to make sure we were seeing links between the Students' Union as a whole and our academic partners, particularly the people who actually teach the students and have face-to-face interaction with those students. But we also worked with one of our officers to set up something called the Academics as Champions campaign. And this was where they were so key in having an open dialogue with academics and encouraging them to ask us questions and to take on board our messages and our activities and to promote those in their lectures and tutorials and whatnot. So what we did eventually settle on was a monthly presentation slide that contained key information targeted at that faculty of students or that department of students about what the Students' Union was running that month that they could get involved with. And it was presented not by us, not by an officer. It was occasionally presented by a programme rep, which was really a nice idea, but mostly it was presented by the academic staff themselves. And it meant that even if they didn't have all the information, they felt like they were a part of the project, they could ask us questions back, and that students took it more seriously as well. So if you can get to that level of communication agreement, that could be a really good idea.
Good answer. Do you want to answer? We've had another couple of questions through. Do you want to answer those now, or do you want to take those at the end and carry on with your planned content?
I will grab those at the end and whiz through the remainder of the content in the best way possible, and then we'll have a dialogue at the end.
Lovely. All right, keep questions coming, everyone, and upvote the ones you want answering. So,
what activities themselves did we actually present? So I'm going to minimize Q&A quickly. I think I am, maybe I'm not. We set the main premises for our activities as the following list. So we wanted early evening activity for our academic students, and we wanted evening and weekend activity for our residents, which are those times that both groups said they most desired activity, and actually that they were at risk of just going home and feeling isolated and not feeling like something was taking place. We wanted our activities to be peer-led where possible and to demonstrate the usage of all of our social and communal spaces. We wanted, where we could, to have recreational sporting activity, which was something we didn't offer in bucket loads beforehand, but meant it just got students being active and, as we say here, contributing to their health and well-being. And we wanted activity that encouraged peer-on-peer interactions. I'm also really keen to shout out a brilliant officer-led campaign that we put in place, which was our Winter Celebration and Care campaign that saw extra support and social opportunities presented to students during the winter break, mostly those students who weren't likely to be staying with family or celebrating the holidays. And what it showed the university is that the demand for support from the university and Students' Union isn't just termly, but lasts the entire year, and really helped us boost that level of, okay, there are students who not only want this, but need this stuff too. So what activities do we present? We were very lucky. We engaged, when we looked at our information, we looked at who engaged with each activity, who sort of bought membership for different things in the Students' Union, and who engaged in our democratic processes. And we saw that 1,643 different people, we had that many different engagements across 1,065 individual students. So about 30% of our overall campus, which was more than I ever envisaged. And I was absolutely delighted with that result. But more importantly, it was looking at the numbers of multiple engagements with multiple engagement occasions, tongue twister, with each student. And we saw that at least 35% of those who did engaged on multiple occasions, and 5% of those who engaged on at least 4 occasions. And this was something that I don't think the university would ever have expected, and something that I didn't expect a lot either. And it just showed that there were students on this campus who were keen to get out there and make the most of opportunities, and who could take on peer leadership roles in the future. And that's something that our campus has really been missing. We haven't had peer leaders on this site. And so that's something that I'm really looking forward to implementing going forward. And it's a great piece of evidence to show the success of this project. I often get a little bit frustrated when people talk all about the activities and interventions they put in place, but don't share the resources that they use to manage them. So I thought I'd make sure I get that in this section here. So obviously we benefited from this support from the university. It was £50,000 that helped fund a staff member and organise some of our activities, and has undoubtedly been the biggest boost to this project. But we also made sure we implemented a few other resources along the way that I think anyone could consider without the agreement. So we restructured our staff team to allow a consistent front of house staff member on the campus. We never had a consistent member of staff on site. We previously had student staff do front of house, it was a different one every day. And we made sure that we restructured our team so we had a permanent member of full-time staff available Monday to Friday on the campus for any students looking to engage in the Students' Union or just have any questions they wanted to ask. We got an extended data sharing agreement with the university, which allowed us to contact any student on residence, or any student on a campus, about that campus's developments and activities, which feels like it should naturally happen anyway. It was a really big part of us going through GDPR and making sure that we could tell students about everything that was happening on their site, and do so in a way that was consistent and fair, and they didn't infringe on any GDPR rules. We created a purposeful campus webpage, which is the slightly blurry image you can see on the right hand side. And this included where we promoted our events, also highlighted all the facilities and resources that are available for students and any booking procedures they might need to use for those. And it just meant that anyone who did venture to this part of the website could go and do the pick up and play type activities themselves without feeling like they were held back or needed to get any extra permissions or whatnot. We did these monthly presentations, as I mentioned before, and then we set up something called Campus Creators, which is an event proposal scheme for any student who just wants to organise an activity on campus, whatever it is that fits their interests, their needs, and to get some help from staff facilitating that activity. And in the 3 months that it was launched, prior to COVID-19 anyway, we saw 12 to 15 different applications, which was much more than I could ever have expected. And they came from students who were involved in the SU, they came from students who had no involvement at all. It was a really nice boost for the project that we were getting those students in and getting them excited about their campus and taking ownership of their campus too. Of course, the university have been the biggest resource for us going forward, really. This is a lovely picture of our officer team from last year and the university staff. And the eagle-eyed of you will also see me in the top right corner running around like a headless chicken, because I don't get the photo op opportunities anymore, just the officers, sadly. So it did take us a long time to get the university's support on the project. But once we got it, they understandably wanted a lot of feedback on the expenditure and on the project itself. So we set up monthly reviews and reports with the university at multiple levels, including a board, the academic communities committee that we reported to, this monthly staff user group, and we also wrote monthly reports and termly reviews that went to them as well. This all culminated in an end of year report, which included matrices of recommendations according to their urgency and importance. And it meant that we could really highlight those quick wins that the university were asking for, give them to them in the most blunt, accessible way, and say how we could support them on those quick wins to get them implemented before September 2020 and get students already seeing a better improvement because of this project. Crucially, we also made sure the officers and any student leaders were involved throughout, and officer briefings became increasingly important to make sure that they had a continued and consistent voice when talking to the university in all of their meetings to try and get this campus, Avery Hill campus, a more focal part of the conversations that were happening at the higher levels and intermediate levels of the university. So the juicy stuff, what did we actually hear back from students? We saw a broad cross-section of students getting involved and giving us feedback, and we've used this to not just build the recommendations, but to campaign for change as well. These 3 quotes were direct quotes that came back from one of our feedback opportunities, and we made sure we put them exactly as is into a recent paper we submitted to the university to just give critical examples of the student experience. And we're already seeing from 3 very different groups of students. We're seeing there weren't opportunities for socialising, the common spaces aren't there, they don't feel safe on site, they don't see value for money in their halls of residence, it can be isolated sometimes, and that last point, the lower deck, that's our bar on our Greenwich campus, and they're showing that travel to and from the campuses isn't always available when they need it. And I can't promote enough using these direct quotes whenever you can in your work. Even just saying security are rubbish, right? Formally, that doesn't have much of an impact, but actually when you think about it, putting something so blunt in there, that's clearly a student's natural terminology, and they have a real disregard for something on campus that needs to get changed. So we made sure we included it. The other consistent themes that kept arising, and there's 2 slides of these, and I hope some of these will feel familiar to you or feel like, oh, I had never considered that for our student body. They often actually highlighted that safety and security on campus and seeing physical investments into their campus were actually much more significant to them than just wanting to see things or socials or activities. And what they really wanted to feel was to feel like they had a valuable home, they had a valuable base for their studies, and that's something that organising a kick around can never ever replace. The demand for academics approval, invitation and extracurricular activities was really, really high. if they couldn't get academics helping to facilitate the activity, they really wanted them to have their approval. So again, we did this communications project with the university staff. Students felt uncomfortable or uninformed when looking to contact the university for support. And part of this was that they felt like they had to go to a different campus, or that if they were accommodation students and they got back to their accommodation at 7 p.m, there was no one else to support them. And there was no afterwards way of getting support or information. And that just wasn't good enough. And of course, again, that students in residence, they want and need support during the holiday periods as much as any other time of the year, if not more so. We also saw through lots of our COVID-19 practices and the research and support we put in place that there's a real lack of relationship now between resident students of the same household. Not as many students know their flatmates, like their flatmates, or in conversation with their flatmates. And this is a trend that I had never anticipated being a thing. And it just means that there's that extra level of commitment from the university and Students' Union to help students build those relationships either with their flatmates or with others. They felt like communication from the university, weirdly, was too frequent, but actually the downside of being so frequent is that it also loaded with information, and it just felt inefficient and ineffective. And very rightly, people pointed out that if you're an older, family-orientated commuting placement student, or any combination of the two, it's not just a night out that you need facilitating, but it's that supporting presence in their student experience. And it was really helpful for us to show that these students wanted that from the Students' Union as much as they wanted that from the university, and that we weren't just here to provide the fun stuff, we were here to provide those impactful statements and support pieces as well. Overall, and I've used this phrase before, and I think it's the most important phrase throughout, students and staff called for parity of offer, and it's the buzz phrase that we will always use in our conversations. The students' voice that we tried to channel the most was that students often said they felt like their campus was a tick box activity, and it wasn't taken seriously by the university, and it just felt like if they were doing something, they had to repeat it on this site. And what I found to be a really important remedy for that was sharing with every level of staff member and team that I knew the demographics of the different types of students on site, and showing them that this is something that can be implemented as a really core, concentrated sample of students for most of the research and work you're doing. If for our university, students were looking to work out what the experience of international students were, they would be actually wasting a lot of valuable resource by not concentrating on the students at Avery Hill campus in halls of residence. If they wanted to know what the mature student experience was, they'd be wasting a lot of resource and time by not utilising the sample of students within our Faculty for Education and Health, which is on the Avery Hill campus. And it was that way of showing tick box isn't right when there's a really valuable demographic of students here for you to engage and to get feedback from. So overall, what were our successes and developments for this year? From this academic year, sorry. So we've got the project extended for a further academic year. That's a huge boost. But crucially, when we start our work, we've built up resources that have a purpose and can be used sustainably for a long period of time with or without the university support. We've got a passionate officer team who are well versed on the problems and experiences of students at Avery Hill campus that could be used to go forward. We've shown that we had really accurate and detailed prior knowledge, and that this is now consolidated and established in our work, and the university need to pay more attention to our future assumptions and insights. We've got a really valuable and informed welcome plans, however welcome and fresh as may look like for September 2020. We've got the resource and the information available to make that tailored to our students. And we were able to put in a really valuable response through interventions and support for students following the COVID-19 pandemic. I don't know how I'm doing for time. I will take the COVID-19 question at the end, actually. So
yeah,
where is the project?
3 to 4 more minutes, Joe.
That is spot on. So where's the project going next? We are looking to make sure we improve and collaborate with the university more across comms strategies, but also across the types of activities we use and working with partners better. We want to make sure that we have more detailed data and feedback from our students for multi-year traffic and comparison. We want to make sure we're empowering our student leaders to campaign for change, and we're looking to make sure we have we avoid that risk of apathy, and we keep getting feedback and using it appropriately to make sure that engagement with democracy and elections are valuable for students. So some informal learnings that I've taken away from this project that I think might be worth sharing. Just because a student requests something doesn't mean they're necessarily going to attend or engage. That doesn't mean it's not a good idea. This settling in period in September is absolutely vital. And if something doesn't get engagement post-September, again, it's not a bad offer. It's just likely the student would have filled their routine or resource with something else at that time, and it should definitely be tried again. That value for money is so significant to students, and they get a lot of satisfaction when they see something visible and tangible that looks valuable and is something that they can call their own. That academics' words are gospel. That students don't mind who organises something as long as it's backed by anyone. It shouldn't matter if it has the SU's name, the university's name, a department's name on it, as long as everyone has buy-in and it's exposed to the students. That creating spaces for students doesn't make them student spaces. Chucking a load of beanbags into a room doesn't encourage students to go and spend time in that place if they feel like they can't move the beanbag. So encouragement is needed to make students have ownership of places. That it might not be as easy to make friends in halls as it used to be, and that students don't often have the time to demand or campaign for change that they might have used to, and who can blame them for that at all? So this is a plug, apologies that I'm running out of time. Basically, the academic communities and building better communities projects are both extended for the next academic year, which is amazing, and our remits are going to be very similar. We're still looking to make sure students interact with one another, feel confident initiating activity on campus, and that they can see and request change and drive for new things to happen on site from whoever manages the and the university's mechanisms. But going forwards, we're actually looking to appoint a new campus engagement manager for the 2020-21 academic year. I'm leaving the role. I'm actually taking up a job in teaching. I've always wanted to go into teaching, and I've sort of escalated that on a lot of reflection over the last few months. But now there is an amazing opportunity for someone else to come in and take on the campus engagement manager role. And if they have any questions, I'd like anyone to feel confident to drop me an email, reach out to me on LinkedIn or social media, or to contact my wonderful manager, Onye, who is in this chat somewhere, if you have any further questions.
Good plug.
Thank you.
I think we've got time for one question, maybe two, if you can rattle through, and then I encourage people. I've dropped the link to the coffee shop in the chat, and I encourage you to join Joe in the coffee shop if you want to chat about that job or about anything that's been brought up. So we'll just get through Rachel's question, because that's had quite a few upvotes about what you think. How do you think COVID-19 is going to change the way that people engage with satellite campuses? What are the pros and cons of these changes? So
I think the immediate con is that when we're trying to prepare for September 2020, whether it be number of students who are saying they're coming, who are trying to book places in halls or whatever, unfortunately this isn't as accurate a representation as we'd like it to be, because that's not a commitment from students, that's just an expression of interest. And I think a lot of universities might be getting a little bit optimistic when they see students sign up to live in halls of residence, that actually there's no deposit paid, so a student could leave at the drop of a hat if they wanted to. What I think is an absolute pro is that the university and students' unions are going to become so good at adapting to almost immediate change, and to just trial and error, try something new, create new spaces for people to pick up their own activities, and maybe we'll get students who are less dependent on facilitated activity from students' unions and are more there to help create their own communities. What I'm seeing and loving at the moment is a social media space, particularly within our students, that is positive and encouraging, and I really think we're going to see a lot of student-led activity taking place and taking shape, because students just feel like they can do whatever they want to do right now, and are encouraged to take a chance and try something new. Thank you. We have to wrap up there, because we are heading over now. There's a keynote happening, and I've dropped the link for that, with Lee Clark from Give Penny. So if you're interested in the future of the student fundraising sector, and well, the fundraising sector overall, actually, encourage you to go check that out. Or if you want to carry on chatting to Joe, he's going to be in the coffee shop on table 2. It's an online Google Hangout room, basically, where it's not such a formal environment and you can have a bit more of a chit chat.
So I encourage you to head over there. There were quite a few questions that we didn't get time for because there was so much interesting stuff to talk about. So I get the lovely job of thanking you, Joe, for being part of the Student Opportunities Festival. Thanks for that. Loads of really interesting stuff. And we'll make this recording available next week, airmasked, where they're going to be shared. All you have to do is make sure that you're registered with the Student Opportunities Festival, and we'll send links out next week to all attendees about where they can access stuff. So thank you, Joe, and good luck moving out of the student movement, which is a shame, but good luck in your next endeavours as a teacher, and you have to keep us all up to date with how that goes.
I will. Thank you. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and thank you to everyone who's come along and listened to my voice for the last 55 minutes. I hope it's been some sort of a treat for you somewhere.
Lots of thank yous coming in on the chat. So, and a Welsh thank you. Diolch yn fawr.